Yes. Well, let's get into questions on Ahsoka. What is this? Michelle Bellman, do you think there has ever been a Force-sensitive Noty?
Oh, interesting.
The Noty.
I don't know. I think the thing that I'm kind of really excited by with the Ahsoka series is the opening up of the possibilities of a brand new galaxy, new things that we could see. Now, I know that what we did see is kind of like, all right, well, I have no Night Sisters, and I know Ezra, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Mortis gods. We saw some things that we have seen before, but I'm personally excited, to jump into stuff that might be really different in this new galaxy. And the Noty, I'm actually really happy with the amount of stuff that we got to saw from. But, Aaron, we didn't get to see if their shells are part of their body or something they put on.
Like if they're like a hermit crab
Yeah.
that adjusts their, or the little one even had it too.
Did he?
So yeah, there was like a little one that had a little like shell.
Yeah. Well, everybody else has a shell. He can get a little one.
Yeah, but where do you get bigger fake rocks? Are they made?
Yeah, they're made in the sea. Actually, I have no idea how shells are made. Dang it. All right, I got to look up how shells are made. How are seashells made? That's as important. Aaron, a force sensitive though, do you think could happen?
I think probably a lot of creatures could have force sensitivity. I don't know where they are in their sentienceness, right? Like how much they would I don't know if they have like a certain method and stuff they do and it's just how they operate, or if they understand on a grander scale more, right? Like kind of maybe how tribal they are, because they're very kind of tribal wanderers and stuff. But I don't see a reason why they couldn't be.
I mean, we have to do our due diligence and say that anybody has the ability to use the Force, but how sensitive and how powerful can you be?
Sure, and there's even some creatures and stuff, like just animals and whatnot, that kind of have either, maybe it's not like the Force, but there's like a Force sensitivity that they have where they can kind of connect or manipulate or whatever, and they utilize that too.
Forces in all things. The tree.
Yeah.
The rock.
Now, the question we had before was talking more so about like this new galaxy and what kind of connection the Force has to it. Is it just in a galaxy? Is it in the universe? But we saw different things here, whether it's Force ghosts or people using the Force. So, like, there's still a connection here on this planet. Yeah. I don't know if that necessarily means there's not. But there's also the statues at the end, which I feel like also connect to the idea that there's something grander here.
We have to remember, and it is ill-defined, but there is the living Force and there's the cosmic Force. And I feel like the Mortis gods are more towards the cosmic Force. The living Force, though, it's generated by life, right? We have the wellspring of the Force.
Do you think that's more wellspring? Whereas
We have the
Mortis
wellspring of the
gods are
Force,
cosmic?
the midichlorians spread throughout the galaxy. I mean, I think it might be implied that they could have spread further. The Imperial certainly.
Sure.
Do they originate in the other galaxy? Do they originate here? Doesn't even matter at a certain point, Maybe there are billions of galaxies that the Force has spread to, or it was always there, or is never there, and it's all a trick.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But how did those Noty get their clothes on if their shells are attached to their backs?
You're saying with the Force?
Maybe. Or zippers. Or Velcro.
So I'm going to go with the Force.
Okay.
They all have the Force.
They all have the Force.
We just don't get to see it. They don't know how to use it yet.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to, how about Mike Lennon, who says, still confused on where Merck came from. He was obviously a Night Sister magic, but did Morgan make him? Doesn't really matter. Homie is dead. Still curious, though.
Yeah. Well, I think at the very least we can say that he used to be an Inquisitor.
Sure.
Or his body used to be an Inquisitor.
Is there assumption that he is just all magic, or that he has been resurrected, as we saw? Night Sisters have done this before, right?
Yeah.
We saw, whether you've played Fallen Order, or you've watched Clone Wars, or you watched Ahsoka, there's this magic that can bring things back and let them continue to fight. Yeah. Is that what he was? I think he's more of that rather than just being straight up, creation magic. So I think that there's there was a person there, and who was that person? Maybe we know in the future, maybe we won't ever know, but...
Well, we have to also look at what was shown to us. When the Night Troopers died, eventually, they didn't burst into smoke.
Sure.
Merrick burst into smoke.
Sure.
What if it's empty armor and he's...
Just a magical suit of armor, and that's all it really was?
He spoke at one point, didn't he?
He did talk, yeah.
I need to do... Now that the show is over, I guess got to rewatch everything, too.
Sure.
I haven't done any rewatch other than certain scenes.
I want to also watch... There's a... Master and Apprentice, behind the scenes on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I need to watch that too.
I was like, that sounds interesting to have what did the, directors and actors or whatever things they should, because like some of those have been really cool and showed a lot of really interesting things. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go with the idea that Merrick has been like either brought back or kept alive through magic.
Do you think Morgan was the catalyst for that?
I don't know if Morgan was. I mean, it's the best example of it because we don't know a lot of other Night Sisters at the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what's the reach of the Great Mothers, or was it from something else? I would say Morgan's probably the best option, though.
I would say she did seem a little limited in terms of like what she could do with her Night Sister Flame, her magic.
Yeah.
She seems to be a lot more focused on combat. We had Night Sisters like the two that escort Asajj to fight Dooku. Like they were blessed with invisibility powers from Talzin and the other Night Sisters doing their ritual, but they seem to be a little bit more fighters, so to relate them to like Jedi rather than being consulars, they're more guardians maybe. I don't know. But it would seem Morgan, I mean, hell, that the fight she has with Ahsoka was my favorite. I think my favorite fight of the whole show. I love the choreography in it. I love the intensity. I love the ferocity. I love how
it was very fluid.
How fluid it was, and it really did feel like two chess masters going at 1,000 miles an hour. Loved it. Have you ever watched like the chess people that do the speed chess and just And it's like, how are they processing that? Like, how are they doing that? I don't know how. I'm dumb, but they're smart.
From what I understand, it's something to do with vibrators.
Man, yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, maybe that's what was going on.
Yeah, that must have been what it was.
Maybe that's what happened to Merrick.
So, yeah. I don't know for sure, but my assumption is that he was once alive.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get more story on him in the past, like something that goes back a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, is that the longest? That's the latest Inquisitor we know of, right? Right. Yeah. This is the farthest into the timeline of having an Inquisitor we've gone so far. I
would say so. 10 years after Return of the Jedi?
I believe so.
Yeah.
All the others have, like, typically, a lot of them have died, like, before Episode 4. Like, there's been a lot of them that we've seen have died early.
We saw a lot.
So, maybe this has been a resurrected one of that, or it's just someone who's lasted a long time, or it's just straight up magic in a suit of armor. But the thing with that is, like we said, the talking, I think, for the suit of armor magic element seems like a weird part.
Yeah.
You could also say the same thing with Enoch.
You
right?
could.
Like maybe Enoch's some kind of weird.
I'm going to
thing.
assume that Enoch does not look as pretty as his helmet.
Yeah.
And we saw those Death Troopers. They do not look pretty.
Sure.
Thrawn has had to recycle his resources. Absolutely. Good question. Thank you so much.
We did have two. What do they call on YouTube?
Super chats.
Super chats.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we had two of those.
Give me some.
Let me see here. We have Vapors, who said, "Do you wish we could have had a better reunion with Ezra and Hera? I would have loved a longer sequence with an embrace and being introduced to Jason."
I mean, I don't. Would I like to see that? Absolutely. But I'm also. We shouldn't be impatient. I think that we'll probably get a little more there. That was really just Ezra, I'm home moment, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. That is one thing that. Now that we're done with the show and I was able to kind of go, like, what are people thinking? Like, I do feel like people need to remember, like, this isn't a 6-hour movie. This is a television show season. And then it's not done. It's not over. We're not,
sure.
How many TV shows have you watched? Like, you get to the end, you're like, oh, but there's so much more to get to. It's like, that's an exciting feeling for me.
Sure.
Like as opposed to like, they didn't get to the things that I wanted. But
like if you watch Lost Season 1, you get to the end of that season, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Where's the rest of this?
I mean, there's certain things that are satisfying, but there's certain things that are left open-ended.
Sure. And whether that's going to be more shows that they cover. Because, like, currently they've been really jumping between different shows, kind of telling some stories, kind of filling in gaps and stuff, too. But we also have the movie on the way, too. Sure. So, like, a lot of this stuff, I think, will start being filled in either through other shows or through the movie. But, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. I personally don't like to go to a storyteller and say, "Hey, I thought of something better."
Sure.
It's like, well, yeah, but you're building off the thing that I already, So would I like to see an embrace? Yeah, but I, if given the choice between, do I want to see those two embrace, or would I want to have Chopper be the first one to recognize him, even with the helmet on? I think I prefer the Chopper, and we got that.
Sure. There's more connection with Chopper that we have from
not necessarily
Rebels
more.
And
it's
stuff
just
too.
There's something about it. Like I love the unspoken feeling of it. That like you have to we are so good at knowing what Chopper is feeling, and in that silent moment, we understood what was happening too.
I also have more hopes of what Ezra's future is.
Yeah.
Like him being a Jedi, he doesn't have an apprentice. You know, we know Jason is Force sensitive. I think there's an interesting part of like, you know, the found family kind of idea. We have Obi-Wan who, well, here was my best friend. Here's his son. I'm going to train his son. You could have like, here was my master's son. I'm going to train him, you know?
Sure.
And then you could even have the ideas of, I spent time trying to figure out where the heck Kanan's lightsaber went. There was,
I remember seeing it after he died.
There was some debate on it going to Thrawn or not going to Thrawn.
Yeah.
Governor Price had it at one point. And she showed it to Thrawn, but he was a hologram.
Oh, that's right.
So a lot of people are like, they're like, well, no, he never got it because it was a hologram, and then Governor Price never goes there.
Sure.
So people are saying like, oh, well, maybe it got blown up on Lothal, like inside the dome thing that they have, right? So there was some discussion there, and then other people were like, no, I think Thrawn might have it.
I mean, some time passes between those two things, and I can imagine a scenario in which Thrawn is like, you know, I like art, and lightsabers are like one of the only pieces of art that a Jedi creates, and you know, bring it to me, send it by mail.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know.
By mail.
Yeah, so he couldn't. I don't know, but we do know that there are two of those type of emitters.
Sure, at least that Hu Yang had or anything. But I think that it could be interesting passing on a saber that looks like Kanan's because of the emitter and stuff, maybe onto Jason when he's prepared for it.
I like that.
Whether that is Ezra's saber that he made, or they get Kanan's saber again and pass it on to him that way.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some really cool things you could have with Ezra and Jason because of the connection to his dad. It's like, hey, tell me about my dad.
Sure.
Because like you can hear about it from your mom, but it might be different than hearing about it like this was like his student, his you know, his apprentice. So
yeah.
I think there's some
I
cool
like the
things
idea of you know the passing of the saber from you know master to student, but from father to son. I think would be just as good. So yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you for that super chat.
Thank you. We have another one from Devon DeBoss, who said 2 out of 5 for me. Felt more like Rebels season 5. The best thing was Balin's story. Treated Thrawn like a character we've never seen. Lightsaber fight scenes sucked. Not Hayden.
Interesting.
Overall, jammed packed.
Yeah. I would be curious what your favorite lightsaber scenes are. I don't think it was a secret that this is Rebels Season 5.
No, and I also...
In fact, wasn't that said like on the stage of Celebration? I mean, not everybody saw that, I suppose.
Sure. No. I do think that there's a tricky line of trying to thread the needle of people who are familiar with Rebels and Clone Wars, because not every person has seen that. A lot of people have only seen live action.
Sure.
And then also trying to introduce all these characters to people who don't know these characters at all, right?
Sure.
And I think it's a tricky thing to weave. So I think
Certainly.
they introduced Thrawn really well, but I also felt like, oh, I've already seen this guy, and this is still him.
Yeah.
No,
so
I really like
I
that
get what
aspect
you mean.
a lot.
And I think it is important to remember that it's you know it's doing a war on two fronts, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like it should be about what you feel about not you know I'm glad that people come to us and like, what did you guys think? But I try not to do that. I like to keep my stuff, and I guess just say our little group that we have to talk about these things. I like to keep it insular, and I like to think about my experience when I watch something. So I'm bummed that you didn't enjoy that as much, but I super agree that Balin was one of the greatest things about this season. In terms of seeing something new.
I really liked him. It's also my least favorite part of the season, but that's only because like I'm worried about what the future for that character is.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious, and I want to know. And since I didn't get to dive into it that much, and with Rey's passing, I'm like, where do we go with this now? Yeah. I did see some people like fan casting Liev Schreiber as like a Balin, like someone to take the role. But I don't know. I just, as long as they continue the story, I just want to see where they're going with it.
Yeah.
So I hope they can still do that.
casting was responsible for Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, so that's not unprecedented.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, whenever you do recasting, I mean, you do want someone to capture the essence of a character, but I never want to, like, I personally never like the idea of casting that dude that does an amazing Harrison Ford impression as Han Solo. I would rather have an actor that makes real acting choices and not trying to just impersonate somebody. So whoever they do get, and I do think they should recast. I don't think that you need to go down the AI or deep fake, you know, route with a character that's so fresh. Whoever they get, I hope that they see what Rey was doing and try to go down that road, but also bring something that, of them to it, right? Like, the reason I think Ezra works so well is because, like, that's the job of a casting director, isn't just to, hey, can you do this? It's to see something in them that reminds you, but also what can they bring fresh to the table, too, right? So I think you can do that with Balin, even though he is a very recent character for us all. But, yeah, it is no fault of anybody. It is the worst part of the show is how excited we were about that guy being in that show, and then he was taken from us. Like, I still remember when he came out on stage, and we were just so.
It was only us three that jumped up. No one else did, right?
Yeah, only the three of us stood and clapped.
We're like, yeah.
But now, like, if everybody was able to go back to that moment, that whole theater would have been on their feet, So, oh man,
yeah,
it sucks. And not just because of a Star Wars connection. The guy was such a great actor, and from what I understand, what I've seen from like everything else that I've seen of him behind the scenes and in other various conversations, a really, really sweet, gentle dude. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna do. I've seen both ways of people, like, you take a character and now it's an entirely new character, basically.
Yeah.
Like I've seen one where like they couldn't get back the original actor after they switched networks on a show. And they recasted the character and made them like entirely different.
Sure.
But I've also seen ones where like they try to like feel like the last person who had to play the character just to kind of keep that feeling. So I don't know what I'd want out of it. I just hope that we can still get the story that they were imagining, Like that's one of the things we talked about too, I think, during the reactions is, with this series, like they're looking at an overall plan that they have, right? So it didn't end and give you all the answers because they're working on where their story is going, what kind of lore they're going to unfold in front of us, as opposed to a lot of the criticisms of the sequel trilogy was that there wasn't that idea. There wasn't a plan of where we want to go and what is Balin looking for.
They were going the more George Lucas route of like, I have an idea maybe, but I haven't committed it to paper, so let's just make the next one, and then the next one always changes anyway.
Yeah, but I feel like Dave and the people working behind the scenes on like this series is, what is Balin looking for? We have an idea for it.
Well, and I mean, honestly, like, plans are awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you have a 10-year plan for your story and you stick 100% to it, I think that can be really cool. But I mean, over the course of 10 years, you might change as a storyteller. You might have things that you want to, focus on that you didn't want to, you didn't think about 10 years from then, right? Like, there's always going to be some looseness. Like when Captain Rex comes into Rebels and he say, "Oh, we didn't betray our Jedi. We removed our chips." Like, it implies that they did that before Order 66. But then later, when he's actually, Dave's actually writing out what's happening, that's not exactly what happened. So things change. Stories, slightly move, and the puzzle pieces don't fit perfectly.
Caleb Doom is a little different, right? Sure. That's another one too, where it's like, but I thought it was here, not here. He turned right, not left. Those kind of things. But we're talking about Balin too. I saw a few questions and stuff. We can touch this on real quick, but or maybe real long. I don't know. Some of the thoughts were, what do you think Balin is searching for, or what do you hope Balin is searching for? Like either one. Like, do you think there's something, or is there something you want him to be looking for?
Well, what do we know? We know we saw the 3 statues of the Mortis gods. We know that the daughter's statue did not have its head, whether that's through weathering in time or...
Is there a meaning behind it?
Maybe the Night Sisters are like, fuck this lady. I don't know.
And I don't think it's necessarily... I don't know if it relates to the idea of Ahsoka and like the saving of her during the arc and everything, but because during that still, like, the father died as well, right? Or the son?
They all died.
They all died?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm like, well, just her being dead, like, they all, like, someone else should at least be missing a head then, you know? So, I don't know. I want to say it's weathering, and it's, like, trying to be like, hey, if you don't see all of them, you just see some statues, will people pick up on it? Will they be curious? Like, what is that? But
you think we'll see the Mortis gods?
I don't know. Like, in live action?
Because, I mean, you 100% cast Sam Witwer as the son.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think his chin messes it up.
No. His chin's perfect.
For the son?
He's so good at it.
I think he'd be great for the character. Yeah,
because I love what he did with the son. Because like when you really pay attention to the way he's delivering his lines, he goes in and out of like, this time it's Maul, this time it's Palpatine, this time it's Starkiller. He brings all these dark sider feelings into it. But I have always loved his performance of when he accidentally kills his father, and he's like, "Father, no, it didn't have to be this way." Which, I mean, when we look at Darksiders and the dark side of the Force, there's an element of like, "Oh, fuck yeah, they look cool," and look at the powers they have, but they are defined by their sorrow, they're defined by their ego, and they're defined by their grief, I suppose, right? Like Anakin feels grief, and that's what is mainly, takes him to the side. Dooku feels grief for what the Jedi have become, and it goes to the side. Maul has a lot of grief. A lot of those characters have a lot of grief, and Palpatine, we don't know what his grief is, but we do know his ego.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you hope we'll cast someone for the father, but we'll get Sam Witwer as the
or we
son.
just not see him at all. Maybe it's better not to see him at all. It's one of those things where you see something like that, and you go, "What if? What if we see?"
Okay.
And if we do, it's a mistake not to cast him.
True. I think Gonk wants Sam Witwer either way.
I think so. I think he very much does.
My thoughts on Balin, I don't know if it's what I hope. I mean, I kept joking before about like, oh man, they're going to another galaxy. They're going to go to Earth, Eric. They're going to the galaxy far away.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be interesting if like Balin was like a vessel that we had towards the far back to the beginning of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, back then we're going to have nobody. We don't know anyone.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on. We don't know a lot about Balin, but being introduced to him, like, now, perhaps that's either the protagonist or antagonist for... Because he talked about, like, the waning and waxing, basically, of, like, coming into power, going into war, and it just kind of is a never-ending cycle. And, like, he wanted to go back to the beginning and, like, stop things and stuff. And having the Mortis gods and the World Between Worlds, like, there's some connection there to different places and times and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm like, what if he's searching for like the beginning of the Force and trying to like, maybe we can stop the Sith, maybe we can stop the Jedi, maybe we can stop everything. I don't know. Like I'm curious on what he's looking for, but that was my thought of like, I don't know what they call it, a Bible epic of like the Force is going to be
the prime
for
Jedi.
what 25,000 years in the past or whatever it was.
Jedi, yeah.
Like I don't know what that's going to look like, but do we just get introduced to all new people, or do we have someone that we follow back there, and that's why we're going to that time?
Sure, yeah.
So that was my one thought that I had of, like, I don't know what else he's looking for necessarily. The Bendu? I don't know. Yep. I don't know.
No, I mean, the Bendu, honestly, it's not that big of a stretch to connect the Bendu with the Force gods of Mortis. When Kanan is going out into the wilderness because he hears something when he's blinded, and the spiders are following him and stuff, he follows the Morai to Bendu. Yeah. He follows that owl. The Morai is pretty much the daughter, in a way, or at least the spirit of.
There's like a spirit or a
something.
consciousness, a Jiminy Cricket.
It's not unprecedented that the Bendu has something to do with the Mortis gods.
Sure. I feel like I saw some people being like, why is that there? How did it get to another galaxy? But I was like, but it was in the World Between Worlds, which is like, how do you get there?
Yeah.
Like that's just in the middle of nothing.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
It was sitting there on Ahsoka's little thing to say, hey, Ezra, check this out,
Yeah,
so I'm like, if it can get there, I can believe it gets anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
It's mysterious, and I like it that it's mysterious.
Mysterious.
In fact, sometimes I enjoy mystery more than I do answers.
That sounds ridiculous.
Why?
Because you need answers.
Why?
Because you do.
Why?
Now you just keep asking questions.
Why?
But because you want to know the answer.
But the why is fun.
Because you want to know the answer.
Yeah, but sometimes it's fun to just to get to a topic that you don't know the answer.
Why?
Exactly.
All right. Azie Boss Johnston also had a super chat.
Yeah.
This is they already sent in a question, but just wanted to show some love from New Zealand, I'm assuming, in Z.
Oh.
You guys are amazing. Whenever a new Star Wars project comes out, I come straight to your channel to imagine I'm watching it with y'all.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well,
thank you
so much.
We're glad that we can have that like camaraderie of like get to watch it with people that enjoy Star Wars,
I always feel, and I know this is dumb, but I always feel like if I could visit anywhere, New Zealand is where I want to go.
Because of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, man.
I knew you were going to go there.
Those behind-the-scenes features are so great, and that country looks so beautiful.
And there's a lot of horses.
There's a lot of horses. And a lot of horse women.
Horse women.
Yeah.
The way you said it sounds weird, but I know.
No, it's not weird. You know what I mean.
The way you said it sounds weird, but I know what you mean.
You brought the weirdness.
Christopher Killian wants to know, did you think that the 3PO cameo was random and weird?
No. I think that it was necessary because we can't have a Carrie Fisher cameo.
I think if Carrie Fisher was still with us, it would have been her showing up and giving the the moment to be like,
Yeah.
no, what are you talking about? Why wasn't I here for the vote?
Yeah.
Why'd you guys do this behind my back? Next time, let me know. But I did clear her for this, and she'd have came in a lot harsher than 3PO did, I think.
Sure.
So I think 3PO was the way of kind of bridging that gap of like, here's what we would like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do we try to do a CGI look, you know, or
Sure.
do we send C-3PO, have him be like the messenger?
Yeah, I know. I mean, and I love that his exchange he has with Senator Xiono as well. Xiono giving like the shade to droids, and 3PO kind of like 3PO is not going to square up and, you know, fight you conversationally, but he will stunt on you a little bit and then not realize that he did. And I feel like he did that in that conversation. But no, I mean, not any more than I see any legacy character like 3PO or R2 or Chewbacca, that you can see them, recognize them, and there's not any weirdness of like, you know, that ain't really them, you know? So I welcome more 3PO. In fact, I tweeted this out, like having 3PO and the idea of a brand new galaxy, like how interesting would it be? You know, I know 6 million forms of communication, and that's how 3PO is useful as a protocol droid. He is, you know, to make it more biblical, like he can speak in tongues, he can communicate with anybody. But it might be interesting to see him be confronted with languages he's never heard of, with syntaxes he has no idea, cultural ideas that he cannot translate. And it might be cool to like, what does a protocol droid do then? Like a droid, a computer brain can process sounds way easier than we can. So it might be cool to like see a protocol droid put together a puzzle piece of a language versus just knowing it because they downloaded it because someone just
someone else already knew it and programmed it into him.
So I would like to, you know, if we were ever going to go into like, let's explore the new galaxy, bring 3PO. That'd be cool.
Sounds neat.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last super chat I think I see right now from Samil. Says, I think Sam Witwer was the face of the sun statue.
Yeah.
Which
I can see that.
Was.
I mean, yeah, if you have a visual effects artist and they're like, what are we making? It's like, well, George, you know, came to me one day about these God things, and here's the things from there. It's like, okay, well, I'll just make it look like that. And I do feel like the sun was based off. No, I don't feel like it. I know the sun's look was based off Sam Witwer because the sun's look is based off an alternate costume from The Force Awakens, from The Force Unleashed.
Yep, there you go.
So,
you did your thing before I got to say anything.
Yep.
You were like, I'm like, he knows what he did.
Give me a second. I'll figure it out.
We also had a couple people who said that the Ahsoka series is 9 years. So
9 years what?
9 years after Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Because we were talking about...
Or Rebels. I always get confused 5 years and 10 years after Return of the Jedi.
Okay, well, let me read through these here.
Yeah.
Much love, guys. Been subbed since Season 2 of Rebels. Insane how it's been 9 years since the debut. I can't wait to see the look of Thrawn's face when he gets note of Anakin having a son. Filoni is a goat. Thank you, Icy Soul. Maybe I was mixing that with the next one here from Scar Chest, who said, guys, Dave Filoni said that Ahsoka is 9 years after Rebels.
Sure.
So 9 years since the debut. Is he saying that because it's been 9 years?
I would say so, yeah. We know that it's at the very least it's after Mandalorian Season 3, which is a couple years after Mandalorian Season 1, which I think is 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
But didn't Rebels end in Return of the Jedi?
No,
so
come on.
Are we 9 yearsing it from like a New Hope-ish area,
Yeah.
or 9 yearsing it from Return of the Jedi area?
Sure.
Because it ended.
Again,
way
I
over
will
here.
get a tattoo of the Star Wars timeline, so whenever things like this pop up, I'll just whip off my shirt, spin, and we'll be able to know. And I can update it.
That's what we need.
Yep.
Yeah. Are you going to do it in the front or the back? I do it in the back,
I
right?
think I'll need both.
Okay.
It's a long timeline.
Yeah. All right. Like, you're going to go, like, in lines?
I was thinking,
Or just like
a big spiral.
It just goes
Might be
around
kinda
you.
cool.
That'd be, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
That way you just...
Yeah, I'd be like Aang, like it has the arrows all over the place, but it's the Star Wars timeline.
It'd be great if you're just spinning around and it
Yeah.
just keeps going down your body.
Can you imagine, like, for some reason, tens of thousands of years later, my body's the only thing of our human civilization, and they're like, what is this on his skin? They're like, well, apparently he followed a religion of the Force. And someone's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, and they do it too.
That'd be funny. All right. Nick Rocca says, do you think they are teasing Aboleth?
Abeloth.
Abeloth?
From the Legacy of the Force novels. Look, I mean, when you talk about the Mortis gods and then you talk about EU things that you bring back into canon, Abeloth is absolutely a possibility, right? I mean, that's why Thrawn is here. That's why a lot of things that come back into canon can work so well, right? Because we can honor them. Personally, Abeloth is one of my least favorite things in the EU. I didn't really love Legacy of the Force as it was. I mean, I was reading that when it came out, year by year. And Abeloth was just something that, at least at the time, I was like, I don't know. And then they kind of like, once the Clone Wars came out, they kind of like made her into the mother figure, And I just feel like, doesn't that kind of ruin what we're talking about? Like, if we have the daughter as the light side and the son as the dark side, and the balance is the father, then what is the mother? Like, it doesn't really fit in the equation for me, So
Sure.
maybe that's one thing, but I'm super open to it. Just because I didn't like Abeloth when she was brought in, in the old EU, doesn't mean I might not like her or something like her in the new canon.
Gotcha.
I'm a different person than I was when I read those books.
It's like Balin standing on a statue where the father's just like, she's over there.
Over that way. We got divorced.
Yeah.
I got the kids. She got my money.
She got the house where we live over there.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Maybe. There's if you look into various religions and stuff, like the Abrahamic religions, like ancient texts have God having a consort or a wife, so you could maybe go that direction with an Abeloth-like character in relation to the father. I don't know, maybe.
And most other like mythologies with gods have them with like
they can, yeah,
another,
sure, yeah,
and they have.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that we should look at that idea of Abeloth coming into the story as a certainty, like I've seen some people say. Like, no, it is. You might be right, but you don't know you're right.
The worst thing about that is if that's where they are in their mind and it's not that, they're going to be mad that it's not that.
Oh, Aaron, that's unprecedented. When has that ever happened? Snoke!
Boner.
Yeah.
Like, it's just getting that idea of like, you can have. I think it's fun to have theories and theory craft and do all that, but don't necessarily be like, oh, well, if the creators didn't do my vision, then it's necessarily wrong. Just try to make sure to keep that open mind of what other alternatives we could do.
Sure.
And maybe they're holding on to some of these other ideas for something else.
Maybe.
Or, maybe that it doesn't show up in Ahsoka, or, if they do the Heir to the Empire movie or whatever they're going to do with that, like maybe it shows up in the 25,000 years before or something along those lines,
We have no idea the stuff the skeleton crew will be finding out there.
What are they going to do?
We have no idea. Yeah, I mean, I want to keep all avenues open, and I just want to make sure that I'm conserving my opinion and first reaction to the storytellers that are telling the story, not the entire internet all at once.
Sure.
Yeah.
We have a few more super chats come in. I can read real quick here. Could there be an Ahsoka type character for the sequel trilogy or Clone Wars type show to build that era more, like a secret apprentice of Rey/Kylo?
I hope so. It certainly deserves it. I think that if you're a fan of the supplemental material that came out for the prequels, then you should be just as wanting that for the sequel trilogy.
Think about how much Clone Wars helped with like the feeling of clones in general, right? Like I feel like Clone Wars added so much between 2 and 3 to where like watching like episode 3 with the knowledge of Clone Wars just kind of changes some stuff, And I would love to have that where I know people are upset with the movie should have done a better job and told the whole story and this and that, but I'm like, I'm fine with having other material that also like fills in and tells you more story that maybe they didn't have time to do.
Sure.
Maybe they had to cut. Maybe they didn't think about. And you're like, you know what? This fits in much better with it. So I would love to have like an animated series around that time.
Sure. Me too.
Or I'm hoping that we take some of these stories that we're doing now with like Ahsoka, Mandalorian and whatnot, and we touch on in the future further. Like we're
Me
filling
too.
gaps, and I know that they're working on clone Palpatine things, and it's filling in things between that and Bad Batch and stuff of like, this was a process that has been going on. You just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Whenever you watch Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, you didn't know there was a second Death Star still being made. But when you get there it is.
Yeah.
So now you're, oh, dang, okay, there's that. You also didn't know there was a third Death Star being made out of a planet that used to be a Jedi planet.
Yeah.
You know, like you didn't know this stuff.
And if you bring the old EU into it, you didn't know there was a prototype Death Star that was just like the outer casing and the weapon, and then we used that. And then you didn't know there was another prototype Death Star.
Like I think that is more ridiculous of like, it was always just a Death Star.
Yeah.
You know, but
Sure. But honestly,
things happen where it's like, just because you didn't know it was there
Yeah.
doesn't mean that like they completely failed everything. It just means like there's more room for more stories we can tell, and I'm excited for the stories we can get.
There's also plenty of room in this space opera for ridiculousness.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
sure.
all Star Wars has ridiculousness. That's part of why it's fun. That's why children can watch it and understand it, because it doesn't take itself super serious, you know? It doesn't need to be. And in fact, I think it's not Star Wars if it is super serious.
Andor, though.
It has some ridiculous moments in Andor.
Does it?
Yeah, there's always some ridiculous moments. There's humor, there's happiness, there's times of great joy, great sorrow.
Sure.
Andor is certainly aimed for the most mature of Star Wars fans, I think. I don't think that young kids can watch it and understand everything, but young kids get Star Wars Resistance, and adults might not like it as much.
Sure.
There's room for everybody.
And
also, like,
the High Republic cartoon that just came out for like young kids.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
That one's a good one for young ones.
No, when it comes to supplemental material for the sequel trilogy, I just hope that the fandom, especially the people that don't like the sequel trilogy, can chill a little bit, because the reason we got Clone Wars isn't because everybody was asking for more prequel stuff. It was because George Lucas didn't give a crap. And he's like, I got money, honey, and I'm going to be making, I want to increase the technology for daytime television. So I will put all my money into it. Like George Lucas, like they didn't make any money on Clone Wars. He lost money on Clone Wars. But because of that, he not only built a new generation of people that could appreciate Star Wars, but he also changed a lot of people's minds, or at the very least adjusted the way people thought about those characters. But Disney's a business, you know, and at the end of the day, if people are like, we hate them, forget about it, and throw that side of Star Wars in the trash, they might not do it, you know. So
Sure.
Honestly, I would feel like even if I didn't like those movies, I would welcome that type of material maybe a little bit more than I would if being me that liked them.
Sure. And I feel like that's what happened when Disney first took over, too, was that they were like, let's stay away from the prequels because everyone hates that.
They canceled Clone Wars.
So sequel trilogy stuff, they were like, let's make it feel more like original trilogy and really focus on that kind of thing. And then like when that started falling through a little bit more, they've leaned a lot more into some of the prequel stuff. I mean, I would not have expected back when the original trilogy was coming out to be like, oh, we're going to have a character flying a Naboo starfighter, you know? Because like that felt like a thing where it's like, that's a prequel thing. You pull that away. Have them fly an X-Wing. People like X-Wings, you know? But no, the Naboo starfighter, like, yes, I love the Naboo starfighter.
Dude, when the Clone Wars movies was coming out, and Christopher Lee voiced Count Dooku in that movie, Samuel L. Jackson voiced Mace Windu in that movie, Hayden Christensen was like, I'm interested, and they're like, no, we're going another way, because of the vitriol the fandom had for a lot of what Hayden went through and did, and that's really sad, and it's angry. I mean, I love Matt Lanner, and if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have gotten some amazing performances from Matt Lanner. It's why I'm just not too focused on like responding to hate.
Sure.
If I'm a storyteller and I tell a story and some people don't like it, I'm not gonna be like, well, I'll stop. I'm like, no, I'll tell my next story, and maybe I'll put a little bit of the response into that. Yeah, but you don't want it to be the point,
Sure.
So.
No, I get what you mean. I have the same thing, like, they having Hayden coming back for things and having Ahmed Best coming back for things. Like, I've been, oh, man, I'm so happy for that, you know? And I hope the same thing happens with all the things that happen with the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Dude, we've been eating so good with Hayden. Like, the Vader scene in Obi-Wan, like when the mask comes off and, I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. And then he does it. You only see one eye, but that eye looks right at you and says, eye did.
He's acting so much with one eye.
That's so good, and I watch that scene all the time, and it makes me so emotional. And on the flip side, we get Anakin talking with Ahsoka. It's so different. Hayden gets to bring those performances years and years after it felt like Star Wars abandoned him and the fans abandoned him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
No, the cheers he got at Celebration were great.
You guys are making me emotional. I loved it so much.
The Panda also said, love your channel. Been a fan of Blind Wave since Flash Season 2. Woo. Do you think we'll see more of Shin, and do you think Luke will show up in the Filoni movie, or will he be on his island by then? Also, I think Balin will find the mother.
Yeah, no, Luke wouldn't be on... I mean, he could be on Oct. I don't think Luke
so.
would
Not
be
then.
on the island because Han says
he's got to build the thing, the temple. They got to have Ben.
Yeah.
He has to start teaching, and all that has to crumble down.
Yeah.
And even what we saw when they did the flashback, like he looked younger than what he was at that point of telling the story,
Sure.
but he is older than where he was last time we saw him.
Absolutely.
I feel like.
Yeah.
So we definitely have time on that.
Yeah. I know there are some people that are like, well, what's the point? I don't want to see anything. It ultimately ends terribly. And I want to be like, all things end terribly. That doesn't mean that the stuff that happened before isn't meaningful or worth something. So, yeah, I want to see more Luke. It would be great. I just hope that they really think about and can nail how they show someone like Luke Skywalker. I'm definitely not opposed to just recasting the characters, I would be 100% fine with Alden Ehrenreich coming back as Han Solo, and a thing after between Harrison Ford things. I'm a fan of Phantom of the Opera. I don't have one Phantom. I have 7 in my head when I'm hearing those stories, and I don't need to have one over the other, or I don't need to be like
Eric. That's the most ridiculous. There's one Phantom, and it's the Phantom Menace.
Excuse me, there's only one return. It's not of the king, it's of the Jedi. Hey, I just made some Lord of the Rings nerd vomit.
No, I get you on that. I think they could recast him and do some things with him that way. I know a lot of people were for Sebastian doing that.
Sure.
But I would love to be able to utilize those characters more, especially with like Carrie's passing and different things too, of finding like young Leia was great. Yeah. I think young Han Solo did a really good job. There's things I've watched where it's like, here are some things he does that's trying to emulate Harrison Ford, Han Solo.
Yeah.
But he's also got some of his own, Han Solo-isms in there and stuff too. Like his own things he's done. And you got to get to the point where it's like, at some point, this Han Solo will become this Han Solo. It's also why, like, I really hope they don't, like, waste what they could do with characters or actors that could play characters still now. Like, I really would love, like we have Tamara Morrison being able to be like Boba Fett now, being an older Boba Fett. I love that. Like, I'd love to see Boba Fett before New Hope, like in between episodes 3 and 4 and what he's done. And like, you could recast someone for that, or you could get like Daniel Logan, who played the younger clones, and like I think that would be a cool thing to do. But the more and more they wait, then you get to the point where it's like, well, let's tell more stories for like after Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
And now everyone's either gotten a lot older, or they've already passed, or all these kind of things. And even having like Rey, like anything could happen.
Sure.
They weren't. No one was expecting him to pass after being casted. So like,
I mean, it was what, a month and a half after we saw him, and he looked so vibrant and full of life.
It's just crazy. So like, I really hope that like, they don't just say like, oh well, all these characters with like Finn and Rey, like, we can't touch them. We're not gonna do those for a while or anything. I'm glad that they're doing the Rey movie.
Me too.
I hope they use Finn. I hope they use Poe. I hope they use
if John's willing to come back.
I hope they use any of that and like help build them up, and Rose, and stuff like that.
That's one of some of my favorite things to just think about what could be when it comes to Star Wars. I mean, obviously Ahsoka just added a whole lot to it, but I love the idea of thinking about what a new Jedi Order with Rey could be like, and what differences, what she could learn from what's in those books, not just the successes of the Jedi, but the failures. Yeah. And what can do. It could be really fun. So, I hope it's awesome.
Tossing in animation there gives you a lot of leeway to be able to still tell stories of characters that aren't with us anymore. The actors aren't with us. But
when Leia shows up in Rebels, none of us are like, well, this is bullcrap. Who's that voice?
No. I love that. And like, there's so much stuff you can do. Like, let the animation do some animation. Don't be afraid to dive into animation stories and stuff too. So. Free range chicken says, perhaps the mother is the highest mother of the Night Sisters. Chaotic Night Sister Mannequin is a great opposite to the father's order and control.
Yeah,
so like
I can see something like that.
having that idea, we have the great mothers that we've already been seeing, and Mother Talzin. There's a lot of mother. It could be interesting of like the mother of the father is actually more Night Sistery within the Force, and that kind of brings that element right into it.
Dave Filoni is a big Lord of the Rings fan. A lot of people remember from the movies or from the Lord of the Rings books. The Agronath is it's those big giant statues they pass by in Fellowship of the Ring, and they're on the former borders of Gondor, and they're denying the East and Sauron, like the hands are up, come no further, So maybe the Mortis gods are doing something similar with their hands outstretched, no further, come no here, don't come here, and whatever Balin's looking out to or what they're looking out to is a force they're stopping at the borders of this galaxy, So
maybe,
there could be definitely something there. I'm super open to it. I personally just didn't like Aoth as a I don't know if I'm even saying it correctly, as a character that the other characters were interacting with, just because I'm not a fan of Force monsters, and I'm a fan of characters that make human choices, like Palpatine's as close to a Force monster I want to get to personally, but I could change that. I'm really open to having my opinion changed on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, I mean, a character like Aoth is nothing to me compared to a character like Dooku from Tales of the Jedi.
Sure. Like I don't know that the Aoth kind of creature character thing, but I think the idea, like, I don't know much about the Mortis gods either.
Yeah.
But I think it could be interesting of having, like, we've had Mother mentioned how many times in Star Wars this whole time it's been in front of us that there must be a mother, and it's tied to like Night Sister magic in some way, and I think that's a neat way of twisting that. I'd be behind that. I don't know what else we're looking for, so
yeah. I don't know.
Space Tacos said, just want to say how much I love both channels. I rely on super nerds like y'all and Kyle Katarn for all the sweet Star Wars trivia. So thank you. Thank you, Space Tacos.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've invested a lot of time into these stories and a lot of love into these stories. So if we can use that to help other people out when they're trying to fill gaps, then that's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for watching.
Appreciate it. Alpha JPEG says, how do you think that Hu Yang shacked up with Ahsoka?
Ooh,
so how did we bring those two together?
Yeah, that'd be a really interesting story, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to. I don't know how Sabine and Zeb hooked up with the Rebels crew, I don't think it's something that I absolutely need answered or anything. I think it makes sense that, like, a former Jedi and a former Jedi droid might one day hook up, Like, she might be like, Saber needs a new, flitzer. Where am I going to get a flitzer? And they go like, you got a flitzer? It's like, well, there's a guy back here talking about flitzers. Hello, I'm you. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons that they could have hooked up, but I do like that. I love that he's there. And I also loved the moment Ezra met him.
Yeah.
Because, I know those characters well enough, and it's just always fun to be like, yeah, they never met. So, but yeah, how do you think it happened? I don't know.
I don't know. They did have an implication that the ship has been kept by Hu Yang more so than Ahsoka.
Yeah.
There was, at least that's how I took some comment that they had during the show.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's related to that. Maybe he escaped on that cruiser and somehow they met up. It would have to been after Rebels,
Yeah.
But
sure.
I don't know when. I think it would be a cool story.
It'd be a good, like, comic book story, maybe.
Maybe. I thought that it was a
Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi, maybe. Yeah. Maybe probably more Ahsoka-y, though. But it could be like Tales of the Jedi and it's Hu Yang. But it's like the whole season is just Hu Yang with other Jedi.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you're getting these little tales of these other Jedi, like, all starting. Like, you get to see, like, Yoda build his first lightsaber. You get to see Dooku build his first lightsaber. But it's all from, like, Hu Yang being, like, a catalyst of it all. Like, that could be kind of cool.
I think Hu Yang, like, the potential for that character is so great because he has all the elements of, like, a D&D scholar or like a mage-like character, but he doesn't delve into the supernatural. Like, he can't delve into the supernatural. It's literally like he's not a living thing, so he can't deal with that. But, like, you have lines where it's like, well, people don't just disappear into nothing, right? And he goes, no, Well, not normally, because in his head he's going, of course not. But, sometimes I've heard, like sometimes Jedi die and they just disappear. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes we burn them and they disappear. I don't know what happened. I love that character.
No, I think Hu Yang's great.
And
so
David Tennant's so good at it.
Yeah.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
All right. Let's see. What's next here? Dustin says, getting closer to the sequel timeline, how would you start to connect the storyline into these shows?
Oh, man, how would I? I mean, I think that you could have the elements of the Imperial Shadow Council. I mean, we've already seen it, right? There's a Hux on that Shadow Council.
Sure.
So I think that you have Thrawn, the brilliant tactician, maybe play on the idea of this isn't a big deal. The New Republic thinks it's not a big deal. We don't want to rush into another war. So maybe you have Thrawn start to set up elements of the First Order, or at least elements that Palpatine takes over. Or
sure.
I'm not really sure exactly, but you could go maybe that route.
Yeah, because we need to see the First Order being created. We have that Shadow Council, right? So, like, I don't know. I don't know what the best way of really gelling those together is. You still have things where, like, maybe you can connect some of the Council into things of, Exegol and Palpatine. Like, there was a mention of, Project Necromancy?
Necromancer, I think.
Necromancer. Yeah. So, like, maybe there's some things there that we can start working on to kind of connect into it. It could be interesting to have an underlying story, because we don't know exactly what Ahsoka, like, what her story was all the way up into, like, getting the sequel trilogy and stuff. But
certainly, in The Mandalorian Season 3, we saw Pelion, who in the EU was Thrawn's, like, right-hand man, commander. And he even says, like, the thing we need to focus on is the imminent return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. And now that we watch Ahsoka, you kind of have to go, like, how does he know? How does he know Thrawn's coming back? Like, there's no connection to the other galaxy or anything. He shouldn't, So I
think they're connected with Morgan, right? Morgan Elspeth. Like, there's a connection there. Because the only thing that we know of is that the Great Mothers gave her dreams to see and know what was coming. So
I mean, Morgan...
There has to be a connection between her and at least Pelion, right?
Morgan is, like, Ahsoka says, where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? Morgan hasn't necessarily had anything to do with the Empire, right?
Well, I mean, why is that her master too, right? Yeah. Like, we didn't see her in, like, Rebels or anything. So was there a connection from before?
Maybe.
Or was there a connection from, like, the dreams?
I kind of like the idea that Pelion just, like, he just, like, is keeping up, like, oh, yeah, he's coming back, but he has no idea.
Sure. I mean, maybe it's similar to, like...
just a bluff.
It could be similar to the, like, what Hera's dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, we're going to find Ezra, and Thrawn could come back. And they're like, they've been gone for years. There's no way they're coming back, you know? Like, they don't believe it. So maybe that's the same thing Pelion's holding hope. Like, we don't know where Thrawn is. We don't know he's dead. He will be back, and he will lead us, you know? Like, maybe it's even that related. But, yeah, I don't know.
I'm excited for someone that is a much better storyteller than I am to try.
I agree. Matthew said he was very happy to see Claudia Black in Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I hope someday you guys might react to Farscape.
Yeah, I never watched Farscape. I'd said in the reaction at one point, it's like, well, I never watched or did anything with Farscape, but there was a Jedi Outcast mod that was like a bunch of models and skins that I downloaded, and it was like, Vader and Dooku, and it was this amazing modder and skinner that, like, made everything look amazing. And he just also liked Farscape, so he had like 5 or 6 Farscape characters in there. I remember being like, "Who's this? This person's cool." Like, playing with him a little bit in the mod,
Gotcha.
So that's the only reason I know anything about Farscape.
Man, sorry. In the middle of that, I just had a thought.
Yeah.
About when I said about Hu Yang and seeing, like, Yoda build his lightsaber and all that kind of stuff. I just remembered that there was, like, a line that Hu Yang says, like, "This is like the most action I've seen in a like test or whatever since Master Yoda got his lightsaber."
Yeah.
He said something along those lines, and I'm like, oh man, what could it have been? Like, damn, now I need that.
Little, like, rebellious teen Yoda, like, screw you.
Yeah, right? Oh, man.
Powerful I am.
But thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that.
So
and maybe some point, Farscape will be a thing we
never know.
check out.
You can go to blindwave.com and put it in your recommended.
Boxing Love says, I would love to see Kanan as a Force Ghost next season. Do you think that's possible? Given the end of the series that we had, like, I think it's possible. Is it something that would want to have happen? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It could be something that could be fun to do. It just depends on what the reason is, right?
I love
in Rebels. Hera has like a moment where like she reaches and like feels like her shoulder and like senses like Kanan there, and it's not like a Force Ghost in the way that you have like Luke talking to Obi-Wan, or Obi-Wan talking to Qui-Gon or any of that kind of stuff, but we at least see it, and like I just like having that kind of element there where like for the audience especially, and for Hera, there's a feeling and there's emotion there, and I really like that. Like I don't want it to just be there just to be there, so it really depends on the reason, and I think there could be good reasons, especially if it has to do with like Jason or something, maybe, you know?
Yeah.
There could be some really cool stuff they do there.
That could be cool.
I could be crying and be like, no.
I want to see that. I want to see you cry.
But I would say, especially if we're in a place of strong Force, like, power, I think is the times that, like, maybe, like, the veil's the thinnest and, like, things like that could come through. Where it makes it not a thing where it's like, well, now Kanan can just, like, talk to Jason anytime he wants or something. But because we've gone to maybe like Dagobah, or maybe because we've gone to what's the planet called? I was going to call it Paradis, but that's like Aoth.
Peridea, I think.
Peridea, right? Isn't it Paradis Aoth?
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say Paradis, and I'm like, that's not it. Like maybe there's like that strong thing that Balin is feeling allows to have like that Force Ghost kind of element happening and stuff too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I think we talked about during the reaction and stuff is like some of these things, like I don't want it to just be able to happen all the time. And, you know, like there was a big point of like, well, Qui-Gon kept his form in the Force, right? Like it taught Obi-Wan, taught Yoda because of their communication with him and stuff, where I don't want it to just be like, well, just anybody is able to do it.
Yeah.
You can say the chosen one, Anakin, that's why he's able to connection to the Father or whatever it is. But, you know, you start getting like Luminara and you get Kanan, you get Ki-Adi-Mundi, and you get all these guys like, oh, they can all just be Force Ghosts now. It's like, well, I think it needs to be something special sometimes, you know?
Well, yeah, I agree. It needs to be, like, I always think back at Yoda's line, like, what's in there? Only what you take with you. Like, I think Force Ghosts manifest and come to people not because
individuals,
they have their own agenda, but because of what people bring to them, you know. So what somebody needs is what calls them. So if Kanan is needed, maybe he'll answer that call. There was also kind of that thing where it's kind of implied that one Loth Wolf and Kanan, you know, Doom, you know, there's a connection there too. So even not just Force Ghost stuff, maybe you can have something like that.
Sure.
Later.
Like a Loth Cat.
Yeah.
Doom.
Yeah.
Be great. And then I have one more, I think, from Matthew here. Nope. Thomas. Hi, guys. Big fans. Been watching since Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Your discussion just made me realize, would Hu Yang be aware of Grogu? I think he would be. He may not know that he's still around, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Also, I don't know. It depends on what Hu Yang... At what point does Hu Yang know of the younglings?
Right. Hu Yang might not know you until you've built a lightsaber, and then he makes room in his processor for you.
Until you're at that point in your training and stuff, because like there might be a lot of Jedis that start off younglings and they never make it that point, you know? Yeah. So I don't know if he has a library of just all the Jedis, but it seems like he has a library of like lightsabers. So I would say it's possible he doesn't because of that specifically.
Sure.
Just because he was too young for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Could be an avenue for a fun story.
Yeah. Matthew says, Senator Ziono reminds me so much of Borsk Phalia from Legends.
Yeah.
I'm going to love to hate him.
Yeah.
I don't know that character.
A Galactic Alliance character, like on the side of the rebels, but not always the most pragmatic character like Ziono is. You know, I talked about it in the reaction. Like, it's easy, I think, to hate someone like Ziono, but if we try to get on his side and think, why is he feeling this way? I think that it's not too difficult to see a galactic civilization that so easily applauded the the introduction of fascism to be very wary about where they send their armies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not really getting to see his side entirely.
No.
We're already on Hera's side, knowing what's true.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it. It really goes with that idea too, where it's like he is complaining about things that we've seen.
Yeah.
But she has no evidence of any of these great claims, right? So
Yeah.
it's hard for him to be like, where's this Jedi? Where is this, where's any of this information that you're sharing? Where's any pictures, video, anything you got? And they got nothing. So it's like, how can I believe, like, if you just showed up and it's like, Aaron, I was abducted by aliens and they had lightsabers on their UFO.
Sure.
And then, like, I woke back up in my yard. And I'm like, okay, well, where's your evidence of that? And I'm like, well, I don't have any. It's like, well, that sounds ridiculous.
It does sound ridiculous.
But if, like, there was a video camera that followed you and everyone else got to see it, but you didn't show me, then I look like a fool being like, Eric, you're lying to me, Like, it's so, yeah, I get you. It's definitely a.
I mean, he's a skeptic, and skeptics are think of a Christmas movie, and there's the one where it's like, Santa's not real, you crazy person, and it's like, oh, that character. You imagine he said Santa's not real, But when we apply skepticism to our own life, it's one of the most reliable pathways to truth, as opposed to something like just blind belief or faith or something where, faith is the evidence of things unseen, but skepticism is like, don't believe things until you have good reasons to, right?
Sure.
Because there's a lot of people out there that could trick you, or that you can accidentally start believing something that's not true. Yeah. Zeno might not be the best character that I put like the skeptic. Look at him and praise him,
Sure.
But that's just because we, the believers, know what's going on. Right?
And then, like, my emotional response watching it when I first see him, like, screw this guy, you know? Like, come on, it's all real. But he doesn't know that at this point, know? So, and he doesn't have enough belief in, like, Hera and them either. And he's trying to do what he thinks is best for the galaxy, I guess, right?
And, not for nothing, but sometimes it's cool when you have characters have an arc, and he is set up to have an interesting arc if they do anything with him. To go from one thing to another, you could do something interesting there, and then just like Bail Organa, it doesn't end well.
Yeah,
as all things don't really end super well.
Now I'm thinking about him. I'm thinking about how cool it would be to like get into like the future of things and have Kaz involved and stuff too. Oh man,
I know, dude. Hell yeah, dude. Have Christopher Sean play Kaz in the New Jedi Order film.
Yeah, like in the future. Why I don't know why he must be a pilot.
Of course he would.
Right?
Why wouldn't he? Why would there not be like a, like a Skywalker Squadron? And there's Poe's on there, Rey's on there, and Kaz is on there.
Yeah,
he has his fireball.
Goodwill says, if/when Sabine builds her own lightsaber, does she make a new dark saber? Would make sense that Hu Yang would know how. So the last Mandalorian Jedi made the dark saber, right?
Tar Vizsla, yeah.
So would she go along with a similar idea? And would that be a interesting idea?
I could definitely see it happening. My dislike of the look of the dark saber aside, I think that would make sense, but I would just want it to mean something to her. The dark saber did mean something to her, but that was because it meant something to all of Mandalore.
Sure.
And she had a very complicated relationship with all of Mandalore. So if you're going to do something like that, just make it happen for a good reason, and not just to like be like, oh, isn't that cool? I mean, sometimes isn't that cool is fun.
Sure.
But it doesn't evoke a feeling to me sometimes of a more whole feeling. So I right now love the idea that she's using, Ezra's lightsaber. Ezra trained by Kanan, who was her first teacher of the lightsaber. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. While on the topic of Sabine too, I saw some people asking, oh man, if I can find it again, but what was the wording of it? It just escaped me, so I'm trying to think of what it was now.
Sabine.
Yeah, it's about Sabine. Would Sabine know about Mandalore being like re-inhabited?
Oh,
and I'm in my mind, I'm like, I don't think necessarily yet. Like, we know it happened. Trying to figure out what the timeline of all of it kind of fitting in with. Like, it may not have gotten to her yet with things that she knows yet. So,
I mean, I think that where we see her in the story is her focus is on Ezra and nothing else, really. I mean, it's one of the reasons that Ahsoka is kind of afraid of teaching her because she sees that singular drive and focus, and someone that's been incredibly hurt by, her family turned on her originally, right?
Yeah.
Like they joined the Empire over her. There's a lot of darkness and grief in there, so maybe the focus on Ezra is kind of a way of her trying to center herself. And now that that's happened, I mean, obviously she's not in the galaxy anymore, but I could see that being something we go on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool to have her involved with that at some point, but if she doesn't know it yet, I don't think it's too crazy or anything.
Yeah.
It was a smaller group of Mandalorians that went to go take it back, and I don't know what all they've got done and what all they've spread around the galaxy of being back at it or anything too. So I think we'll just see where that story goes. Plus, also a lot of them, or at least Mando and Grogu are over on Navarro, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep. At their homestead.
At the homestead.
Gonna live happily ever after.
Alpha says, I want Luke to train Ahsoka, Cal, Marin, Jason, Ezra for his school, but do you think they all need to die because of a handful of students Kylo took out?
I mean, it's possible, but that doesn't mean that those stories won't mean anything. I mean, I love the prequel Jedi. I love Plo Koon and Kit Fisto and the younglings at the Gathering. I love those stories, and I want more of those stories. And just because I know they all died in Order 66 doesn't mean that I don't want it, or I'm not like, I don't care. They're all going to die anyway. It's like that's true of every character almost that's ever existed.
Sure.
They will eventually die, yes, but seeing new parts of their life is still exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know the fate of Luke, but it doesn't mean I don't want him to, like, show up in any more stories or anything, right?
No, of course not.
Like,
yeah.
So, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, Gonk, what other questions do we have? Or actually, what time is it? 4:10?
4:10.
Should we move on over to our...
We can try to do one more question before we move on.
Well, that's not a question, Gonk, but I can mention just that Thomas is...
Oh.
As a side note, I kind of need Clark Gregg in Star Wars.
Oh.
Is there a good character for him, or should he just be Space Coulson?
Sorry, I couldn't resist. That dark, shadowy corner is just too good.
I love Clark Gregg.
Yeah.
I don't have a character in mind that I think he would be good with.
Maybe like a droid voice might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like a more bloodthirsty protocol droid or something. I don't know. That's just I don't know why that immediately came to my head, but yeah, love Clark Gregg too. I hope to see him in more things.
Yeah. I don't have a character for him in mind, but yeah, I would love to see him more too. All right, let's find one more question about towards Ahsoka and stuff that we can discuss here. How do you compare them? Garachi, how about this? How do you compare book new canon Thrawn and Ahsoka Thrawn, or do you separate the two?
Nope, they're all the same character for me.
We've recently went through the first trilogy, not like the first Heir to the Empire trilogy, but the first trilogy of the new canon Thrawn books.
Yep.
We discussed those. We've watched Rebels. Now we have Ahsoka here. It's like you just kind of have all those pushed into one character.
I do that with all of Star Wars.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, it's very easy for me. I think the one thing from Ahsoka that you could be like, I don't know if Book Thrawn would say that, was when he's for the Empire, towards the end in this last episode. But I can also very much see that book character saying it for the right reasons, for what he wants the Empire to be, which is something strong that he can use to defend his people,
I think what will really do it for me will be where we go with his character. The book one definitely had him feel like he's doing what he needs to within the Empire to make sure that his Chiss ascendancy planet will be in good shape. It will be safe, right? Sure. Like he wants to push the TIE Defender program because he doesn't think the Star Destroyer is a good idea, because also that's a danger towards his planet that he's from, right? Whereas TIE Defenders would be one. It does seem to be a better idea because it definitely, you could have those everywhere instead of just one location. But the idea is that it won't just destroy the planet. Yeah. Right? So, but depending on where he goes with this, it seems like he's bringing a bunch of possible zombies into our galaxy.
Or reawakened Night Sisters and zombies.
Yeah. So, what is the plan with that, And is that going to be for the better of the galaxy? Because I feel like he usually has a really good plan of what he wants. So I'm really excited to see where they go with that, and I think that will make my determining factor of like how it fits in with the books, and then Rebels, Thrawn, and we haven't read the other trilogy yet.
The Ascendancy, yeah. I'm excited for that.
It'd be fun to get into those at some point.
We had little elements of like, it seems to be some type of like Chiss Civil War brewing and all that stuff. So yeah, I really want to get into those in the interim. The next we see Thrawn in live action, maybe we'll have read those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And then I'll cover this last one. That's a super chat, which says Riz King, who says, "Do you think we'll see Captain Pelion in season 2?"
Ooh, yeah.
And
I mean that, or
I would hope so,
or maybe the Heir to the Empire movie, if that's what we're going to be going with. Yeah,
whatever story we're progressing into,
Yeah.
I would hope his return to the galaxy would then bring Captain Pelion into that, and then you kind of have them together like they did in the old books, right?
I mean, if you ask me though, which one would you rather have, Captain Pelion or Eli Vanko? I don't know. I love Eli.
I
so
do like
much.
Eli. Eli was really good. I don't really know Pelion. Like I didn't read. I didn't read the old books, and all I know of him is him being like, "But we got to prepare for this," you know. And
but the cool thing
Eli
about the
great.
EU is that he is really the only true. When it all said and done, the Empire completely is destroyed. The remnants, like Pelion, is like the like last warlord of the Empire left, and he joins the Galactic Alliance. So the Empire, or at least Pelion and his Star Destroyers and his people that are under him, are on the good side, you know? So I always liked that for the character. Like, years and years after the Thrawn stuff, he was the face of the Empire, or at least the remnants of the Empire that they burned away all the real bad stuff they do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be cool if Eli comes in, because at least we're back in the galaxy. Thrawn's back in the galaxy that Eli's in.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're going to go and see, like, the Chiss planet or something like that. Or
Sure.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. The New Republic and the old EU, it breaks too when it becomes the Galactic Alliance, which I always like that name, because it kind of stems from the Rebel Alliance.
All right. Well, guys, that's probably it for our Q&As on Ahsoka and whatever else we talked about in that whole
Yeah,
segment.
we covered a lot with that. Yeah.